to give a separate millage for capital improvements with an existing millage devoted exclusively to operations or some other creative plan. Those are what, right? My first question is, why are we assuming, so the current mill rate is 3.3? Right.
0.33 mil.
0.33, okay.
Yep.
So why, or does this, why aren't we just assuming, number one, a maintaining of that rate rather than an increase of the current millage? Why doesn't this reflect that possibility, just maintaining the existing 0.33?
It actually does. So if you look at, and I would, if you're trying to whittle it down, the 489 pages, read chapter 6
Okay.
and chapter 13.
Yep.
6 is the funding scenarios, and so that shows distinctly two, one being at the current 0.33 rate, and then a second scenario at the 0.53
0.53.
rate.
Okay, maybe that's
right.
where I missed it, because I saw that,
Yep.
I saw that there are tables in 6 and, yes, table 6.1 and then
Yep.
table 13.1
Yep.
that has that scenario. Okay.
So it does the same thing. That's chapter 6 that looks at the funding. Chapter 13 looks at the actual projects that would be funded under each of those scenarios. And again, there's a separate chart for each of those two options.
Okay, so stay with it then. Let me stay with this idea. So if on page 245, the actual report 231, but online it shows it
Yep.
245.
Yep.
All right. So in the area of planning and development, we have park planning and then we have land acquisition, right? And you talk about a guideline of 20 acres per thousand in the population, right? Now, where does that guideline come in? So here's a couple of questions. Where does that guideline come in? How does Ottawa County park system compare across the state for counties with parks, right? Especially with similar populations. Then I get to this line. This guideline, the guideline you say in the thing, suggests that the size of the park system, 7,500 acres, which is what you said we have, is adequate to meet the current need population, currently 305,000 here, as well as the needs of the county in 2040, projected at 340,000. So if this report's saying that our current system of acres, right, is enough for now and 15 years from now, why are we even talking about more land in addition?
Yeah, well, I think there are some other paragraphs in there that I think address that. As to your initial question, where did it come from? That the acreage goal was set a long time ago, probably in the early 90s even, I think. And it was set at 20 as a minimum. It was never 20 is totally adequate. That was 20 as a minimum. I think we have a chart in there that shows what some of the other park systems in Michigan have. It varies quite a bit, and if you ask around what people's goals are, it varies quite a bit. I know Lake County, Illinois, for example, is 40, right? Double us. Some have a way more. It depends what property they have. If you have state game areas and stuff in your county, right, you have a lot more public property. So, so I would say it's a matter of preference. I don't know if there's anything logical you can say. Okay, okay, that's absolutely what we need. I mean, I would look at it more. Okay, what percentage of the property in Ottawa County should be protected or conserved, right? If you look at it that way, we're 1.2% or something, very small amount. So I guess I would say that. What was the second part of the question? Was in regard why would you? I would say we aren't focusing on too many other spots just for the sake of property. They always have an other overlying purpose to them, like Rosie Mound, for example, right? That vastly increases the value of that property to have adjacent. So the properties that we are looking at would be adjacent to existing properties to make the property have a higher conservation value, have a higher recreational value. So as opposed to just, for a while, I think, yeah, we were just looking at, we needed property. We were 400 acres, right, in 1990 or something, and we just knew that wasn't
And I
enough.
think when I talked to Jason on our tour this, I asked you how much more are we looking at, right? I asked you a question like that. And you said you've identified those areas and there's probably not much more that you haven't already identified that you'd want, right, in the
Mhm.
county. So you kind of have an idea. And that, so that gets me I know I'm talking too much here, but
Right.
when you set, I'm thinking about land acquisitions, new land you want to buy, maybe up by North Ottawa Dunes area, whatever, right? I'm asking myself, all right, if the millage was set at 0.33, what would be your priority of acquisitions? If your millage was at at 0.5, what would be your acquisitions, right? What would be your scope so that we can see as a county, as a board, what the plan is? I understand maintenance and operations. That has to be a given. We have to absolutely protect all of that. But I'm talking about the growth. Do we really need to grow more of our park system if, number one, it's adequate for our population in the next 15 years? And what can we get for the 5 point whatever millage is going to be versus the existing renewal of 3.3? That's a form question I'm posing you guys to think about before you come back to the board. The other factor is the Headley Amendment. I don't have a handle. I know how it works, that we're capped at 5%, at max, if, whatever it is. I get that. But how does that impact the millage rate? So, and you talk about this in the report a little bit, you have, as property values increase, property values increase, you're still subject to the Headley Amendment when it comes to the taxes rate, right? All right, so what does that really mean? And this is why I think an analysis should be done. I'd like to see an analysis. What does this really mean if we stay at the 0.33 versus the 0.5 if you do that,
Mhm.
right? What does the increase in property values of Ottawa County, how does that increase your revenue under either one of those two millage scenarios, right? Knowing you've got the limitation under Headley. I think we should see that because it's a huge number and it's going to change over time, but that'll also affect how you budget your plan going into the next 5 to 15 years, right?
And if you go to chapter 6, those two charts, they both have an increase. We talk with equalization about this to determine, okay, what do you think the actual tax revenue will increase based on the county growth, all of those things, and Headley. Now, I think we historically have always repassed the millage at a rolled back Headley, right? So right now we're getting 0.31 or something instead of 0.33.
Sure.
When we renew, we ask for a 0.33 again, so then it goes down from there. So that's the answer to that. But yes, those projections show that exactly what we project the increases to mean in terms of actual revenue.
And I apologize that I haven't.
No, that's all right. It's hard to find it. It's hard to find
I
it,
know,
but
and
yes.
that's why I really need to scrutinize it because
Yeah.
my fundamental question is, as you come to the board in the future, is do we need more?
Right.
Do we need more? And what's that impact financially to the taxpayer of Ottawa County? That's my fundamental question, how we get there, right? We can have all these great ideas. Yeah, if nothing was unlimited, sky's the limit, fine.
Right.
But do we want it? Do we need it? Should it be there? Those are my questions that I'm going to be posing to you guys.
No, and I think it's great dialogue.
Yeah, I want one other point because you were asking what does the 0.33, at 0.33, there essentially is not any discretionary money to go towards at land acquisitions. We have been very successful of late in acquiring property when we have a property owner who is willing to donate a portion of the value, because for the grant programs we go out, you need to provide a 25% match But if the property owner donates that 25% match, we essentially can acquire that property with the grant or just the cost, the closing cost, right? Which is tens of thousands instead of hundreds of
So
thousands.
let me just ask you a direct question on that. So if you renewed at 3.33, would you be able to finish your project at the Bend?
We would be able to finish the acquisition of the project and the trail through it. But
How about you're putting showers and all those kind of things in bathrooms and.
Yeah,
actually,
there's nothing in there.
In one place you're doing that. But, portable toilets and running
Right.
water and that kind of, will you be able to finish that part of it out?
No.
No.
And I think that, so a couple things. The plan before you today doesn't establish the millage rate.
Right.
So it's a planning tool, and we provided a couple different, we looked at a lot of different scenarios at our Parks Commission level. And then for this process, we narrowed it down to a renewal and then looking at 0.2% increase. So with minimal land acquisition, even with that increase, really it would be looking at, new improvements of facilities. So if we stay at 0.33 with rollback, we wouldn't be able to do necessarily, we would have no millage dollars allocated for improvements at the Bend area, at Ottawa Sands or any other future phases of Rosie Mound. The other thing that, part of what we talked about when we got the public feedback, we would maintain, we're positioned really well to maintain what we have. But, the public wants modern restrooms at Riley Trails and other, renovating and upgrading those facilities into modern restrooms that then also have the ability to be open 12 months out of the year. That feedback we heard overwhelmingly from the community. So the other thing it provides opportunity at looking at infrastructure to expand our natural resources programming, as well as our community engagement programming, and really looking at expanding that out to, our goal would be to, we have 5,000 students that we served this past year. This plan would allow us to reach 25,000 students over the next 10 years.
See, that's the data I'm looking,
Yes.
so if that's in chapter 6 or 13 or whatever chapter it's in, if it's in that plan, right?
Yep.
That's what I'm asking, right? What can you do for if it's a renewal, what's it going to be?
And we have that kind of broken out. I didn't bring it today because we didn't want to get bogged down too much in the different scenarios of the millage. And just so everybody, when we did our strategic plan, we did really robust community engagement with that scientific survey. So I have a contract right now with a firm. We're updating and testing that survey. So before I formally ask the Parks Commission to request an increase, and before we bring it to you all, we're testing all of this to see if we still have that support that we did a year ago. We believe we do. Don't think there's been any changes, but a lot's happened in the past year, and we want to make sure that that support's there. So
I think there's another question that you should be looking at too. And I think if you're going to try to, if we're going to bring this to the voters for approval in the millage, I think the question is, okay, another question is, what if the millage doesn't pass? What can you do under the current park system? What will be lost? I mean, can you maintain the current park system if the millage fails, right? Has that question even been addressed about what happens if it doesn't? Because I think the people have to understand there's a consequence on this vote, right? And it sounds like there's 3 consequences, but the public should see those.
So the timeline as it presents itself. So I think by May, and I forget the exact date, but we confirmed it. By May, we need to have the board approve the millage renewal increase and have that filed with the clerk's office so that we can then be on the ballot for August. We do, after that August, and I forget the exact date, that first week of August, there is a window to have the board approve another ballot to go on in November. So if something catastrophic would happen, whether it was a renewal or an increase, we do have the ability to have a second go at it in November. And that's why we chose this August ballot as the the primary one to go. So we also maintain a fund balance. So I think, and Karen, I don't remember exactly what we landed on. It's about 2/3 of our operating budget that we try to maintain going into this last year. That way, between our fees and charges, we can operate the park system for a year. We would have to cut way back, but we do have a fund balance that is unallocated that if something catastrophic would happen, we would be able to operate.
Catastrophic meeting.
Meaning there wasn't a renewal
Oh, yeah.
and we had to operate the system for an indefinite period. So,
Well, I'm going to stop talking. I've talked. way
no,
too
it's all great questions. And we do plan on providing additional information. I know this is Patrick and I have talked, one of the things that from the board's perspective on strategic planning wants to be a consideration also. So, yeah.
Well, just
Just-
don't misunderstand my question.
No, it's
This is all information
I
we want
love
to be.
Ottawa County Parks.
Yep.
I- But I also understand what we're trying to do as a board to try to balance all this. And you just heard in the finance committee, with Good Samaritan, we were looking for an accounting of the ARPA funds that they used, right? And so we're still on that same mindset, I think, that when it comes to whoever it is, and you included. So I appreciate what you do, truly. But those are the questions that kind of think in my mind that I'm be looking at over the next couple months.
Yep.
So just to be totally clear, the millage is a huge percentage of the park's budget. So if the millage, just the renewal didn't pass, that would be a big problem. Like we say, we have fund balance that could take us for a year maybe, but we'd have to figure out some other kind of funding. If we just renewed, yes, we believe we can take care of what we have, but we're not going to be able to expand programs or, there's not much money for acquisitions or any other big improvements, just renovating what we have.
All right.
And then, yes, obviously the increased millage just provides funds to do additional things. So,
All right, Commissioner Miedema has been patiently waiting to jump into
No.
this, so.
What you had to share was very relevant, and I appreciated what you brought forward, John. So again, as I already stated, very thoroughly done. I appreciate the strategy that you think not only through like 1 year at a time, but many years out. I think going off of a little bit of some of what Commissioner Teeples already said, and then I have a couple other separate questions. So can you please share, first of all, what does that 0.33 equate to monetarily wise? Do you have an idea of how much money that brings in?
I looked it up after we talked. It's going to average over the next 10 years, it's projected about $6.5 million a year.
Okay.
So right now, it's a little less than 6 million. At the end of the millage, it would likely be, this gets to your whole thing, right? The expansion of the county, continued growth, it'll be closer to 7 million, but average about 6.6 over the next 10 years.
Over the entire 10 years, 6.5 million?
Yeah, so it would generate about $66 million.
$66 million. Okay, and that would be the 0.33.
The 0.33, correct.
And then how about 0.53? I mean, we
That
could
would be
probably do the math.
that would be another $4 million per year. So about a little less than 40 million.
Okay,
Based on our projections, right? This is assuming, it's making some assumptions over 10 years, but based on our best
sure.
estimates, right?
And I would assume, based on what Commissioner Teeples just said, you would come before us in the next several months and you would propose like what that actually equates to of how you would choose to spend that money if the voters approved it.
Right. It is in there if it's very detailed in that one chart, but yes, we will give
Okay.
you some better ways to look at it than just,
Okay, maybe
50
just having it
projects.
brought to our attention
Yeah.
more than versus shared within an entire report. Because while I went through a lot of it, probably not every page. So,
You would need to approve the ballot of whether or not it's an increase. So that, I think that'd be the good opportunity to talk about how would we use this?
I
And that
agree.
will be part of the strategic plan discussion for
Okay,
sure.
great. Okay, let me go back to some of my notes I was taking as you were speaking. Kind of like with ag parks, similar, it's really important for the public to continue understanding how we are basically, how it affects our economy, right? And sometimes when we when we're only, you guys do a very good job of it. I just want to encourage you to continue. Like when you put in there how it affects our economics and you put about tourism, the spending versus activities, I think that's something that we need to continue to be reminded about as a board, as well as getting in front of the public and understanding how it affects an entire community.
So for every millage dollar brought in equates to $6 of positive economic impact directly to the community.
Perfect, thank you. And then projecting further out, I'm guessing that you've had many conversations with being in leadership in your department. How much of the grants that you currently receive go towards new land acquisition versus maintaining county parks? A large percentage is acquisition, correct? Not.
I think the largest percentage probably would go to historically with, and especially when you look at that 60 million that we talked about, large land acquisitions, but there also are development grants. So later in the agenda, we have a development grant. We actually might have two on the agenda later today. So I think as we just look to the future in general, we're looking at more renovations and upkeep of our parks and then development of existing lands.
I just wondered how much that's going to affect the operations, because at the moment you have a great advantage to seeking to take advantage of grants that we can use here in Ottawa County. So as we move forward and there's less land to acquire and you're putting more into maintaining, how are you projecting, is that going to come at the cost of more here in Ottawa County residents, and that's when the millage dollars potentially need to be increased in consideration? Or are there other conversations you're having with vital donors and whatnot to maintain what we have for years to come?
I think so. I think it's, we have multiple opportunities. We've always been very lucky, and I look at it as a three legs on a stool. So the millage dollars being that one portion that's really stable, then being really aggressive about looking at grants for access improvements or planning or land acquisition, and then philanthropic support with our foundation and continuing to grow that capacity. So we've started working with the foundation long-term on developing a site amenities fund. So as we do our memorial benches, a portion of that goes to the foundation with the intent long-term that things like signage, trash receptacles, playgrounds, different things like that, in the long term, we might be able to offset those replacement costs with this fund that's developed over years by donors investing in, the parks. So we kind of see it as, right, twofold.
Yeah, I think it's, everybody kind of recognizes that typically when you have your large donors, they enjoy putting things for something that's more, like for example, out at Ottawa Sands, right? They enjoy seeing the fruit of what they did. And so I'm just wondering if you're taking into consideration as you go forward, that as you run out of that land and those pretty cool opportunities, how you will keep that momentum going with those donors.
Well, so we have endowment funds also. So there's several endowment funds, mostly two of them are geared towards, they're housed in the Holland Zealand Community Foundation and one in Grand Haven Community Foundation that support our programming initiatives. But for example, Kurt mentioned our Rosie Mound expansion. We developed a campaign to fundraise for that included the land acquisition and protection, but then that first phase of development, we included, I think, 20 or 25% that then would be set aside to be invested, that then would either support, another seed money for another phase of development or long-term renovations and maintenance. So a portion of that, almost $1 million that we're trying to fundraise will be set aside for future, support of that infrastructure. And I think that's, part of, the whole process is getting to this stage and seeing where we land on the millage moving forward. And then we'll build in, how we do all those projects in the future. But I think long-term, the goal is, through both philanthropic support and grants, we're as little dependent on the millage dollars as possible
Mhm.
long-term. So.
And kudos for, I guess, who you partner with and continuing to have a staff committed to bringing in those potential dollars to you, and I encourage you to keep utilizing that. So keep up the good work. So that is all the questions I have at the moment. So.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments?
My
Okay,
comments are all good, so I got, yeah.
a good conversation.
You look at the percentage of people that want and use our parks, and I think that's why I did the survey. The survey says a lot of what we can look forward to, so I think that's a good point to go through, to keep the
Yep.
surveys moving
Yep.
forward.
Because we want to make sure that you all, and I think that, by all means, if you all have, as you dig into that or have other questions, please reach out. Happy to have that dialogue. What's important to me is, as you all are out in the community, we would want your support and backing on this. So what questions and information or material can I provide to all of you to feel comfortable in answering those questions to your constituents? And I think that's why we're here. So.
And more than happy to meet with anybody if you
Yep.
want to go through the plan or want me to show you where things are.
Yep.
Happy to do that.
All right, I think we're at the point we need a vote to forward to the full Board of Commissioners, this resolution accepting this plan as submitted by the Parks and Recreation Committee. I think we can do this as a voice vote.
Resolutions, don't we need? I guess we're not adopting the resolution.
Forwarding that to the full board.
Up to you, however you want to do it.
Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Moving to Eastmanville Connector Segment Grant.
Read that one.
Sure, go ahead.
Motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund Grant Agreement and Resolution for the Eastmanville segment of the Idema Explorers Trail in the amount of $400,000 to authorize an increase in the budget for capital project 2210 to $1,695,982 with funding from the grant, Parks Millage, and the Parks Foundation, and to authorize the Parks Director to take such actions as are necessary to implement the intent of the commission in these matters.
Support.
All right, let's have discussion and please
You
continue.
need, it's fairly self-explanatory. We were recommended for a $400,000 grant. This helps us on the Eastmanville segment, which is the one that runs from 68th Street, Eastmanville Bayou Park, into Allendale. So it's really a key piece. And so we're glad we got some help to fund it. And yeah,
There are maps.
yeah, that shows where it goes. But
All right, any other discussion on this?
I just have a question. So Lakeshore Advantage is hosting a talk, I think on the 21st from with a gentleman from Arkansas. Are you going to be there?
we're both attending.
You're attending, great.
Mhm.
Good. Talking about how to connect and
Yep.
this exact thing here.
Yeah,
So
they've done it.
plan For the next 10 years, it looks at, so I think in conjunction with Department of Strategic Impact, previous non-motorized trail plan was done about
Oh, a long time ago.
20 years ago.
ago.
So really, our goal would be, looking to the future, updating that and seeing where these regional connections are, and looking at it as a community-wide resource. So,
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah, for John's sake, as you're sitting on the TAC, this is a big discussion of how to link through these trails to really make Ottawa County a special place for biking,
Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow too, and I've watched his videos and his presentations of what he did in Arkansas and stuff. So there's no question, you guys do great work, and this is all part of the bigger picture. So
Part of it, right, and part of that discussion about really, we want to be able to help lead that. on a countywide basis, and that's part of that conversation. Increased.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote then. And this is to approve and forward to the board, this grant proposal. Ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
You got to call the roll on this one.
What's that?
Money, you gotta call the roll.
Go to Rachel.
Oh, okay.
She'll cover it from here.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes,
motion passes.
should have looked at the dollar sign. That would have been my clue.
It's a dollar sign, go for it.
All right, next is the Eastmanville Connector Segment Engineering. Jordan?
The motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the professional services contract amendment in the amount of $95,414.78 with Prine and Newhoff Engineers for the Eastmanville Connector segment of the Idema Explorers Trail.
Support.
Not 95 million,
You're used to dealing with state budget.
I recommend that one.
decimal through. me.
Exactly.
All right, so this, the item before was funding this project, and now we need to implement it. This engineer has been with us since 2018 on this particular project. And so we finally have it fully defined, and we know exactly what we need to do to complete it. So we do need to amend their contract for that amount, and that will carry us through the end of the project.
All right, any discussion on this? So the motion to approve and forward to the board this contract, and I see a dollar sign, so Rachel, we do the roll.
Yep, Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes,
motion passes.
right. Moving right along, we have the Hawthorne Pond Middle Mac Interagency Maintenance Agreement.
Motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the Hawthorne Pond Middle Macatawa Interagency Maintenance Agreement and to authorize the Parks Director to sign and take such actions as are necessary to implement the intent of the commission in these matters.
Second.
So this actually is a very exciting project overall. So we're, for those who were able to attend, we stopped at both Hawthorne Ponds and Upper Mac during our tour in the fall. We partnered with the Holland Charter Township. They built a trailhead and a restroom facility on Ottawa County Parks property. We actually co-own Hawthorne Pond Park. And then through that agreement, they take care of the management and the maintenance of Hawthorne Pond. So this agreement, what it simply does is just lays out the roles and responsibilities. So in 20 years, when Kurt and I aren't here anymore, and if a question comes up, it's been predefined, just who's responsible for what. So the township will be responsible for maintaining their facility and that infrastructure, and then we'll maintain the trail connectivity. This also, we're partnering with the Outdoor Discovery Network and running the trail. They provided an easement to us to run the trail through their property and connect in with Upper Mac natural area. So we'll manage then the trail connectivity between those properties. So.
Just a quick question. Are you both satisfied on both ends with the agreement?
Yep, I think it's been a wonderful partnership and we like working down there and getting this one done. We'll actually hope to have a dedication later this year and maybe at Upper Mac, a groundbreaking for that restroom, maybe. So, yeah.
Any other discussion on this? All right, the motion's to forward this to the board, the maintenance agreement to the board, and we do voice vote on this. Okay. All in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes. And down to the Allendale segment of the Idema Explorers Trail.
The motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the easement agreement with Spring Valley Church for the Allendale segment of the Idema Explorers Trail at a cost of $9,198, and to authorize the Parks Director to take such actions as are necessary to implement the intent of the commission in these matters.
Support.
All right, discussion on this motion?
All right, we've had a few of these easements come to you. We've been working pretty hard in Allendale and acquiring the easements that we need to make the trail work. This one's pretty obvious. It's on the corner of 60th and Lake Michigan Drive, northeast corner. There's a church there. Because of the way the intersection is there and there's multiple lanes, there's very little room in the actual road right of way to build the trails. So we're getting some property outside of the right of way. So that's what it is. It's basically a strip along 60th that allows us to fit the trail through there. So the amount was based on our offer, which was based on a broker's opinion. So we think it's good.
Just a
Sure.
quick, can you tell us just a quick recap, kind of where we're at? Is there any things coming down the line, more of the major things to really?
In Allendale or on?
Yep, on this Allendale segment. I know you guys have been working with the township and is there
Yeah.
anything new to update the?
I
board?
mean, what would you say? Yes, we're applying for a grant through the Transportation Alternatives Program, which we had planned all along, but we finally have all the documentation we need for that. So that's going to be submitted here in the next couple of weeks. We're still working hard on the intersection issue there on M45 and 60th to see if we can get that re-signalized. That would make it better for everybody. It's still kind of a long-term deal. I mean, it looks like it's probably 28 or 29 before this happens, but we're just going to keep plugging along and get there. So,
Great,
mhm.
thanks.
Yeah, having taken part in the parks tour last summer, it's got to be one of the more complicated pieces of this whole trail, I would think. A lot of,
It's turned out that way. Yeah.
well, any other comments or questions? We'll take the vote then to approve and move this agreement to the board. Rachel?
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
motion passes.
Last one with parks, I think, is the Gross Park Playground. So you want to?
Sorry. The motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the Gross Park Playground removal and replacement bid from Play Environments Design LLC for $89,000.
Support.
So we had built this in our last Parks and Recreation plan, and we have an inventory of all of their infrastructure and then budget out every so often and lump sums for improvement. So there are two playgrounds at Gross Park right now, both around 25 years old, actually. So what this will do is it will replace one. It will also, what we'll do is when we dismantle the older one, we will use the parts and pieces from it to upgrade the other one. So so we'll get a new one and then upgrades to the other existing one. So we worked with Karen's department in purchasing. We had, I think, 15 different proposals from 7 different vendors, and a copy of the plans are in there. So we're pretty excited about getting this going. Our goal is always to have these projects done and in place by Memorial Day. So yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Allison?
Have you had communication with Chester Township at all on this and timeline? And I know they're not in charge of the playground, but just.
We'll let them know once we, get it scheduled and ready to go and give them an update.
Great. When is the projected timeline?
I think it's actually in the contract. I saw it sometime in May. So,
Okay, great. Thanks.
yep.
Jason, are you familiar with an organization called Kids Around the World? Does that ring a bell at all?
Are they the ones who recycle old?
They do. Yeah, I wonder if there's an opportunity maybe on this one or a future one where they'll use their volunteer base to come and remove the playground, at least the parts that you no longer want to use, and then recycle it. I think they're located in Illinois,
We'll look
Chicago
at-
area, and then they rehab it and then put it into needed locations around the world. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
No, we'll look it up. And on this one, I think we'll try to reuse the parts that are worth salvaging, but we'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always better to, right, get it to somebody who can use it versus going in a dumpster.
It's amazing to see the smiles at the other end when it happens. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All right, motion to approve and forward this to the full board. Rachel?
Mr. Teeples?
Yes.
Mrs. Medema?
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel?
Yes.
Mr. Kyers?
Yes.
Mr. Bonema?
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma? Mr. Barry?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Good. Thank you, gentlemen. Next on the agenda is a discussion item, Veteran Services Office relocation update. And David?
All right, I'm back.
Can I tee this one up for you, David?
Sure.
All right. So,
Yeah.
just wanted to tee this up for him because it has partly to do with my coming on board and got up to speed with David with all the projects that were going on. And this is one that I knew was a high priority for the board and was in the works. And I just was kind of asking David, the thought process behind the move and trying to understand that. And I did, and it came back that, hey, we put this out for initial bids and it's gonna come back higher than what the board is expecting. And so we knew we needed to come back to the board with a request for more funding. And I just started asking David on what options had been explored. The reason being that that probate court building, two things. We know, just my knowledge, talking with other departments, specifically the sheriff's department, there's competing interests for that space in the future. That was one factor. And the other thing was, as you all know, with population growth, the state may be assigning us additional judges, in which case we would need more court space. So it could possibly be converted back to a court space if population demanded it. And knowing that, if that were to happen, we would have a single point of entry security system whereby veterans going into that department would have to go through security. And just kind of thought that wouldn't be the best experience. So I talked with David, we started working on just some alternative scenarios. And I think we've come up with a good alternative. We wanted to share it with you today and basically kind of see if you're on board with it before we go any further. And that's why David's here. So,
Thanks, Patrick.
thank you.
Yeah, so he hit some of the big topics. So he asked me, look at our space, what do we have available? And after looking at the administration building, water resources needs to move into a larger space. So they're going to be moving into MSU extension. So that frees up their current office space, water resources, to put potentially veterans in that space. So that's what I looked at. Again, I did meet with Patrick, and we were over budget. Going to be 20 to 30,000 over budget. So we're going to come to ask you for more money.
What was the budget for that? Because I thought,
227,000
okay.
was the budget amount. We've spent about 20 in A&E for costs, architectural costs, for designing old probate court into veteran services. So we had about 200,000 left. Construction costs, furniture costs, we were at 250. And then there were some other soft costs that I needed like trash cans and whiteboards and outfitting the space. And then looking at, is it a good use of that space? The old probate court, which is a corrections grade building, having veterans go through court security. Most likely that will become a courthouse again. If we do renovations to other courtrooms, added judges. And then corrections needs more space. So all of that space that veterans was going to get is adjacent to the jail. So the back wall of that space is jail wall. So then, and then the perception of moving Veterans Affairs into a corrections building may not be the best look. So those were the opportunities we had. So then this in the mauve color is the current Water Resources office suite. That is what we're proposing to move veterans into. You can see there. It is 2,700 square feet, I believe, of space. Next slide will be this is the furniture plan that we've put together, so that kind of gives you how the space would be used. There's currently 3 offices in that space, hard-walled offices. We'd add 2 more, so they'd have 5 offices, 4 cubicles for their clerical staff, and some space for veterans to lounge area for them, and a conference space and kitchen. Timeline. So I've met with all of the directors that were involved in this move. Jason, obviously, Water Resources, Joe, Sheriff, MSU Extension. We've all agreed that this plan works for all of them. I've contracted architectural services already for the light work that needs to be done in Water Resources. So moving some fire suppression, HVAC work, that work is already moving forward. Here we are today giving you a board update. I hope to have construction documents back so we can bid in February and March. I will then come back to you for board approval for construction services in April. Construction to start in May through July, and hopefully ribbon cut and move them in July. Almost the same timeline as we were on for old probate court, because there's a lot less work that needs to be done. So you have any?
Oh, you buried the lead. Oh, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Benefits to updated plan, consolidating and optimizing county services within the administration building. So Jason was really excited to be inside this building. They work a lot with the clerk on records. Again, if former probate court is turned into a court, everyone would go through court security. Not a great look. And I expect to save about 30,000 with this plan. So instead of asking for more money, actually saving some money. And they get everything that they wanted. So there's no deficiencies there.
And I think the perception is it feels more like a county department when you're walking into Fillmore than it does across the parking lot. And perception matters, right? We want to make veterans feel comfortable and welcome. And when we started talking to Jason about this, he was excited about the ability to, put flags out in front for the different armed services and really make it an inviting space. And we would retrofit that hallway. I don't know if you've been down to Water Resources, but they've got this kind of alcove. You go through a door and then there's another door. Yeah, you can see that in the upper left corner of that space. We would remove that hallway door.
Yep.
So it's inset like the clerk's office and the treasurer's office. So it would all look consistent. It'd have the Veterans Services Department sign over the doorway like the other departments do. And we just think it's a better solution than what was being looked at, and it's saving money, and that's why we're here. See what you guys think.
Phil?
Yeah, but they, we talked about before that facilities where they can shower and use restrooms, would they be able to use the facilities down there? Not sure yet.
I talked to Jason about that because that question came up, and he told me, and again, this was before I was here, but he said that was an idea that was discussed, but it was discussed early on and not carried forward.
Okay.
So that's from Jason's mouth. I can't speak to that beyond that, because that was something that we wouldn't be able to do. The one thing I can tell the employees are very excited about being here, mainly for use of the workout facility
Sure.
that's available to them. And of course, there's showers and locker rooms in there for them, but not necessarily the veterans that are coming in for a shower, which I don't know how much of that we'd see here at Fillmore.
Right.
Commissioner George Smith.
I think this is great. I was, had the same concerns about being in the other building, but it just makes great sense to put them down there, especially as we want to continue making our Veteran Service Department very service oriented, it's service towards the community, and it provides services for veterans. That's just where you go in the county building. You go to the clerk, you go to the treasurer, you go to the Veterans Department. I think it makes great sense to have that there. So great work on that. I appreciate this plan. I think it's very thoughtful.
Thank you.
I think Kendra was next.
Can you tell me, do you know the estimate, the increase that you said would save 30,000? I know this was proposed over a year ago now, has it been? So that increase is likely due to the delay in time?
The project overall was underfunded as a total at 227. We just couldn't get it within that budget as of today. I mean, really today. I mean, we bid it in November, construction services. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in the old probate court to make it usable space for them. So the project was never really funded correctly. So that's the 20 to 30. There was a lot of stuff missing from the plan. When I came on board, it was like, well, we need to account for this, and there's some stuff missing. So that's the overages. And then the 30,000 in savings is the space needs a lot less work downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jason and I talked about that, I think, because I asked the same question, where did that original number came from? And I think the prior administration just asked for a placeholder number without a lot of research. And so therefore it was underfunded, not really anything to do with the
Yeah.
time delay.
What happens to MSU?
MSU, so this creates a
Domino effect.
quite the domino effect, which is already in progress because Water Resources needs more space. They are at past capacity in their office. So, all right, bear with me here. This is complicated. I have to move MSU into equalization for the time being. They're going to share a space for 6-ish months. Water Resources will move into former MSU. This clears this space so I can renovate it for veterans. Will be moving out in May, June. And that space will be then renovated. It's on the other corner of the downstairs here. That space will then be renovated for equalization to move into, and half of it will be going to the sheriff for his evidence. So we're moving 5 departments, but it's all planned, and I'll be before you to probably ask for some funds to do some renovation, but
Which that was a separate thing happening.
Yeah.
So this actually worked out really well, that need is also being met by this. And equalization primarily works remote. I mean, they are either working from home or in most cases, they're in the municipalities that they're working for. So they didn't need a lot of space, nor do they have public come in to ask them questions. So they have a very high rent location that they don't necessarily need. So that's part of this move.
You all set?
No, I do. I'm glad you asked your question because that was my first one. And so I appreciate that. I do think there's great opportunities because before, when we were looking at the probate court, we weren't given an opportunity to even look at being here.
okay.
And so I think that's wonderful. Like now that the fact that there's some opportunities to shift people around, I think that's great. I guess in conversations, because we're not getting to hear from Jason, we're just hearing what you guys are reporting back. You've presented the opportunities. Are there any potential things that they feel that they're maybe losing by going to this model, or from their perspective, is it a win-win?
Win-win. He's very, I mean, he's not here, but he's very excited for this. I labeled them as opportunities instead of problems. These are the problems.
Right.
I don't,
Yep.
yeah.
The things to work through.
Yep.
And then when you talked about the ribbon cutting in July, so we've been through a ribbon cutting. I would like to know from you guys when they're actually going to be ready for veterans to come here.
Hopefully by July. I mean, if everything can,
Okay. Because I obviously, I think everyone's well aware that that is something that veterans, the staff are just desperately desiring their own space and to finally be able to, I think, be able to implement well and to continue because of all the conversations they're having throughout our community to actually have a space that's conducive to having those needed conversations. So
Yep.
I applaud the work in pivoting. I appreciate you bringing it before us so that we can be included in understanding what's been happening. And I think we were kind of clued in a little bit when Susan came to talk to us about potential more judges coming. And I guess I'm tailored with that. When we designed the Family Justice Center, was there a plan made to actually be able to expand there? Or was it only made for what was the current needs before those judges came? Like, I'm just wondering
It-
where we're at in
there
that.
was there was a plan to expand, but not within the existing footprint. So the expansion is you're building an addition. That's the plan. And that's very costly. So if
yes.
we get additional judges, we're gonna utilize the space that we have, that building included, but first and foremost, they'd probably go to the Grand Haven Courthouse, which we have room there.
Mhm.
We have room at the Hudsonville Courthouse and the probate court. So
Okay.
we could absorb quite a few judges without having to build anything.
Yeah.
Might need to renovate, but we can build.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the update from both of you.
Commissioner Bonema.
Yeah, I was just thinking, okay, so this is covering the remodel for veterans benefits.
Yep.
But then we're gonna move the water department and they're gonna want to remodel and then also MSU extension and they're gonna want to remodel. Are we factoring in those costs?
Yes, we are planning for them. When we do the moves this year, they're not getting anything done to the space. So they are essentially packing up their offices and moving into a new office. We are not renovating or have plans to renovate their spaces today. It will go forward in a CIP plan in 27 or 28 are my asks. Will be going forward to be asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my other
So there's
question
no cost right now.
right now, but probably down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all aging infrastructure anyway. It's from 98, so it's time to renovate those spaces anyway.
Yeah, there is money in the budget that deals with
Yep.
those types of renovations, but there's not anything in the CIP right now. for
Correct.
that. So we wanna name this project with you as part of the budget process coming next year.
And then I guess my other question is around, I understand why the employees of the department would love being here because of all the amenities and it's a very nice space. I'm more concerned about the veterans themselves and accessibility, getting out here. I mean, think about today. And
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
it's a long ways away from everything. As far as I know, there's no public transportation that can bring them out here. There's no restaurants or shopping out here. Just from their standpoint, if, a lot of these veterans have limited transportation options, so they're asking for a ride to come have this meeting, and there's nothing to do for their host that might be driving them out here. Have we thought through that piece of it, that we're taking care of them and we're thinking about them in mind versus our own people?
That was, my understanding was those discussions happened earlier. And, the decision was not made to keep them in Holland, but to move them here. So I was looking at it through that lens of, okay, if they're at Fillmore, what are our options within the Fillmore complex?
Yeah.
I can't
just-
speak to your question.
Yeah,
other
because
than that.
the vast majority of the veterans are not here. They're in Holland,
Yeah.
right? So we're moving away from the people we're hoping to serve.
So I have another question that I forgot to ask earlier. So parking wise, have we looked at that? So when they come here, we had a little bit more parking, I think, by the probate court.
No concerns with parking. There's plenty of parking, and this is lower level entrance.
Lower level C entrance. So there's
Stop.
How many of those parking spots are typically open? So like when a veteran comes driving in and let's say that they have an event here, realistically, how many are able to park down there?
And we talked about it with Jason. I didn't do a count, but just from experience, and I know we all park here, that parking lot is generally pretty fairly open. And Jason said from the standpoint of visitors daily, it's less than, a handful. But when you have an event, we're going to obviously utilize all of the parking on campus for that, which we do now.
I'm probably thinking more, so when the Family Justice Center was being done, that was a parking lot that wasn't, I don't think accessible as much due to something, I could be wrong, but I thought that was an area that was affected. Anyway, I just want to make sure that getting into the building itself will not be a hindrance.
And that was part of the thought on the lower level being
Yep.
0 step and,
Right.
if you had a wheelchair, it's ADA. So
Okay, great. And then the fact that the clerk's office is right there on the
Yep.
same level.
right across the hall.
I don't think I'll ever believe that it makes sense, but I mean, I want the veterans to have their space. Absolutely. I want them cared for. I think of the end user first. I will continue to pound that drum and say, I think we need to relook at this and see where our citizen is at that we're trying to serve. And they're not out here. It's just the bottom line of it. That's where I stand on it.
Commissioner Wenzel has some comments.
This is a little bit off topic and I don't even know who I should talk to this about, but they're veterans there. I've been hearing a lot about getting their own Facebook page since we're having the new building, the new place where everybody gets to go. Because it's too hard to weed through all of the county posts to find those. And I did some checking and we are the only veteran services that doesn't have their own. So I didn't know, is there a reason for that or can we?
Yeah, and I'd
incorporate
be
that?
happy to talk with you about that separately, because that is we do not, with the exception of the sheriff's office, I believe, and clerk maybe, we do not, departments are not allowed to have their individual web pages or Facebook pages.
Mhm.
One county, one voice is our general philosophy on communication. So I'm happy to talk offline with you about that as well.
Okay, I just think it would be super helpful because they don't find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, this is just informational.
Yep.
Thank you very much, David.
You're welcome.
Last, but certainly not least, Public Health and Human Service update with Public Health. Adeline Hamble.
Hi, I'm just going to step up and say hello and then turn my time over to Dr. Unsinger and she can introduce herself, our medical director, and she has an update. So.
Great.
So my topic is different from topic we spent most of the day on, but my favorite show is Parks and Recreation. So I don't know if that kind of makes a transition there. I thought before I start, since I haven't had a chance to meet most of you, I would share a little bit about my background and how I got here and why I'm here. And then I can shift a little bit into my prepared presentation. And I am fully aware that I am the only thing standing between you and lunch. So I will try to keep it brief. So as Addie said, my name is Dr. Gwen Unziger. I'm a family doctor. I am from a very small coal mining town in central Illinois. I'm the oldest of 5. I graduated from a tiny, tiny little Christian school in a class of 7. My mom was my science and math teacher, so I like to say I was practically homeschooled, which was great, except that she knew when I was watching TV instead of studying for my chemistry test. After I graduated from that school, I went to Bob Jones University in South Carolina for my undergrad. And right after I graduated from there, I got a chance to spend 2 months at a medical clinic in Kenya, where I got to put into practice the stuff that I had been learning only about in my parasitology textbook. And it was wonderful, one of the best experiences of my life. When I came back from there, I had an opportunity to work at a doctor's office. I also got a chance to become an EMT for a tiny little rural fire department. And I went back to my old tiny school and I worked as a substitute teacher, a cheerleading coach, choir director, drama director. Had a blast. And then I decided that it was probably time to get my life in gear and go to medical school. So as one does, right? So I went to medical school at Southern Illinois University in Springfield, Illinois. And then I moved here to Grand Rapids in 2005 because my sister and brother-in-law had moved here and started having nieces and nephews to entertain me with. So I moved here to do my residency at St. Mary's and I've been here ever since. I have worked at the Holland Community Health Center. I have been on faculty at the Grand Rapids Family Medicine Residency. I have taught medical students. I used to facilitate a small group with the medical students called the Virtuous Physician, which is where we got to talk about the ins and outs of what it really means to be a good doctor. And then after a few years, I ended up coming here to Ottawa County to really pursue my first love, which is teaching, educating, and really helping people understand their health. And so I thought maybe sharing a little bit of that background as I get into this a little bit weighty and perhaps in the weeds topic today might just help to kind of let you know where I'm coming from. So what I'm here to talk about today is something that I'm sure a lot of you have been hearing about in the news and having conversations with in your community, as well as probably with your own healthcare providers. And that is the recent changes to the language that the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control, made to their vaccine recommendations and what that means for us here in Ottawa County at the health department, as well as through the community. So again, I want to begin this part of the discussion by acknowledging and recognizing we all have the same goal, and that is the health of our children and our community and keeping that community as healthy as possible. And I know that many people have had various experiences with vaccines that have really shaped those views, personal experiences, hard experiences, and we respect those experiences and those different views. And even though we have those different perspectives, I think we can all agree that we're all united in wanting what's best for the families here in Ottawa County. So the announcement back on January 5th raised some questions in the community. It has raised questions in the healthcare community. So I want to try to proactively clarify what these changes might or might not mean, both for our services and for healthcare services in general. And that means I have to explain a little bit of the legal framework that we operate under and try to give as accurate information as I can about what has changed at the federal level and what that means here for us in Ottawa County. So today I'm going to try to focus mostly on the policy and the legal framework, the structures, the authorities that guide the health department's work in particular. Clinical questions about individual vaccine decisions are best talked about one-on-one with a healthcare provider that you have a relationship with. And so if we have any of those questions today, I would love to set up a time to talk about those one-on-one. But since this is planning and policy, I'm going to try to stick to the policy part of things. So to put this in context, I'll start with what happened. On January 5th, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, announced that they were changing some of the routine childhood vaccination recommendations. These were the vaccines that are recommended automatically for all kids of certain ages unless they have a specific reason why they can't get that vaccine. So they reduced the number of routine vaccines recommended from 17 to 11. The vaccines that changed were vaccines for rotavirus, influenza, meningococcal disease, which causes meningitis, respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, hepatitis A, and hepatitis B. The change that they made to these particular vaccines is that they are no longer automatically recommended for children of all ages, but they are recommended automatically for children considered high risk. We don't know exactly what conditions they consider high risk, but that is the terminology as it stands right now, or through shared clinical decision-making between parents and clinicians for everyone else who might not be considered high risk. So I want to make sure that this is clear. The CDC is not recommending against these vaccines. They've changed the category from automatically recommended from everyone to still available through shared decision-making for anyone who wants them. Parents can still request the vaccines, doctors can still recommend them. And HHS, Health and Human Services, stated that these changes align US recommendations with certain other countries' schedules. So the changes have understandably raised some questions, particularly around insurance coverage, provider liability, supplies that are available. And so healthcare providers across the state have been reviewing what this means for their practice, just like we have at the health department. So I want to put it in the framework of Michigan's response and then again, try to bring it home to a little bit more local level. So in December, Michigan's chief medical executive, Dr. Natasha Bagdasarian, issued a standing recommendation. So this is within her scope under Michigan law. She issued guidance that healthcare providers in Michigan should continue to refer to vaccine schedules from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Academy of Family Physicians. These schedules actually maintain the same comprehensive automatic recommendations that were previously aligned with CDC's guidance. And this is nothing new. This is happening in medicine all the time. It's very standard practice to refer to multiple organizations' guidelines when you're trying to make those clinical decisions. This is how we get quality care. So why would Michigan choose American Academy of Pediatrics and American Academy of Family Medicine? Mainly, the reasoning is that these are well evidenced based on rigorous review by the physicians who are actually caring for kids daily. They represent professional consensus of pediatricians and family physicians, since those are the specialties that do most of the care for childhood healthcare. And again, these were developed through transparent, evidence-based processes, and they're the same organizations that we've been following. So what does it mean for us here on our level? Actually, not a lot. We have always practiced shared decision-making with our patients. We continue to make evidence-based recommendations for vaccines while respecting each family's right to make their own decisions. So this terminology change at the CDC level doesn't really change how our clinicians work with the families. We've always provided manufacturer prescribing information. We provide the federally required vaccine information statements. We give medical guidance based on the individual family's situation, and we answer any questions or address any concerns that they might have. We look at each individual situation and we respect those voluntary decisions. This part is important. All the vaccines are still available to anybody that wants them. Even though the CDC's terminology changed it from being automatically recommended to shared clinical decision-making, this is, again, exactly what we always do. I don't want it to seem like this is a big change for our clinical practice. They're just kind of solidifying that language in their recommendations. So by making all of these vaccines available and supporting families in their decisions, our practice is consistent with the federal CDC guidance. We're still required to provide these vaccines for people who need them or want them, and especially for those that can't access them elsewhere. This may become even more important if insurance coverage changes and people aren't able to access them at their own doctor's office. So we, in the Ottawa County Health Department, follow the Michigan Public Health Code. We follow the Michigan Chief Medical Executive Guidance, and this is not in conflict with the CDC's guidance. I'll explain a little bit more about the framework that guides that, because I know it can get confusing as to whose requirement is which. So medical director is my official role. Michigan Public Health Code requires that local health departments have a medical director who's a licensed physician, and I am a board certified family physician licensed in the state of Michigan, which means I have professional obligations to provide medical care according to the standard of care in Michigan. So the standard of care is guided by medical specialty organizations that include, they're not limited to, but they include American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Family Physicians, and a whole host of other abbreviations, but those are the main ones. The Michigan Chief Medical Executive Standing Recommendation directs Michigan healthcare providers to follow the AAP and AAFP schedules, which provide guidance on what constitutes the standard of care in Michigan. Then as medical director, what I do is I issue clinical standing orders, which are written protocols that authorize our team, our registered nurses, our staff, to give vaccines under my physician supervision according to the standard of care. These are basically guidelines that establish which vaccines we have available and give clinical guidelines for how they use. But each individual interaction with patients and their families still involves that shared decision-making that has always been there. And that is what's appropriate for that individual family in that specific circumstance, with all the considerations that that family may be taking into consideration. And again, this is standard practice in healthcare settings. It's just that the terminology has become a little bit more specific about it now. So my clinical license, my board certification require me to follow evidence-based medical practice. And this is basically what shapes everything we do in the clinical part of the health department. And that may be actually a good spot for a transition to talk a little bit about what we do and we don't do, because I know that there can be confusion about who's responsible for what. So what we do, we provide immunization services to people that choose them. We make population level recommendations, which means that we have a legal duty to recommend measures that protect the health of the whole community while recognizing that individuals within that community make their own decisions. And we have a responsibility to educate them about the responsibility that comes with those decisions. So to that end, we provide the state required waiver education and certification for people that choose to opt out of vaccines for non-medical reasons. And spoiler alert, I do have a fabulous update about that pretty soon. So again, I want to help us understand the two different levels. Population-wise, at the population level, we have a statutory duty to recommend disease prevention measures based on the best available evidence. And then at the individual level, families work with healthcare providers to make decisions appropriate for their own circumstances, consistent with their values. These are both happening at the same time, and this helps us to fulfill our mission while respecting individual autonomy. Here's what we don't do, and this is where it sometimes gets a little confusing. Ottawa County Department of Public Health does not require anyone to receive vaccines for school enrollment. This is a state requirement. We do not determine whether students meet school enrollment requirements. The schools determine that. We don't deny school enrollment for non-vaccination, and we don't set vaccination requirements or policies. That's the Michigan legislature. What we do provide, drum roll please, as I turn my page. We provide the state required non-medical exemption and certification for families that are seeking waivers. This is required again by state law, not by our Ottawa County Department of Public Health. We also provide disease control measures during active outbreaks, which may include temporarily requiring unprotected people to stay out of school as an alternative protective measure under separate disease control statutory authority. So that is separate from the vaccine requirements that are also at the state level. We do talk about these during the waiver education so that families can be prepared and that they can understand the responsibilities that come with that decision. But again, we respect that decision and we serve all the families in Ottawa County regardless of what their decision might be. So let me bring it back home. Right now, here in Ottawa County, our vaccination coverage has fallen below the 95% threshold needed for community protection. So what does that mean? Typically, if 95% of the people in an area are protected against a certain vaccine preventable disease, we can be fairly certain that that means that that disease is not going to spread in the community. Unfortunately, we have been seeing vaccine preventable diseases circulating more in Michigan, including measles in each of our bordering counties. We haven't had it here yet, but as vaccine coverage decreases, the risk of those diseases spreading does increase. We have been seeing more people interested in getting vaccine waivers, which means that more families are looking for appointments with the health department, and it's getting harder and harder to get an appointment in a timely way. So, spoiler alert, as many of you I know have been hoping for, we are in the final stages of unleashing, revealing our online vaccine waiver education program. So stay tuned. Hopefully within the next few weeks, that's going to go live. We're in the final processes of getting some of the tech and workflow figured out, but it's really slick and it's going to make things a lot more convenient for people. So again, it's just another way that we are making sure that we can be here as a resource for everybody, even if we have different perspectives on the best way to protect health. We will continue to provide the evidence-based education that is best for the overall health of the community, while again making sure that we bring that home to that shared decision-making with the individual families and patients that we see in the clinic every day. So I want to close again by reiterating, I know we're all working towards the same goal. Our vision at the health department is healthy people. Our mission is working together to assure conditions that protect and promote public health for all. And I know, again, that we are united in that goal, even if we may have different ideas of the path to get there. So I would like to, if I can, try to address any of the questions that you might have regarding the planning and policy portion of this. Again, if we have questions about vaccines themselves or clinical or medical things, let's set up another time to talk about that outside of the scope of this planning meeting. But I thank you so much for your time and thank you for letting me come and share a little bit about how we can all work together to keep our community healthy.
Well, thank you very much. Open this up for discussion. Commissioner Miedema, looks like you're first.
Really appreciate all the information. That was one of the questions I had for your department today. So I'm very thankful of how you presented. And it was also great to learn a few new things about you because I don't think I knew all that either. So I really appreciate how you started your presentation today. My first question is, have you thought through how you plan on presenting the online waiver to the public? And when I say that of presenting, I guess I'm looking at the narrative behind it. I'm just wondering how you plan on presenting it, what's your verbo with it. That's my first, I do have quite a bit here, but that's my first question.
We don't, like I said, we're in the final process of kind of nailing down the tech and the workflows. So when we roll that out, right now, actually, if you go to our website, there are specific spots that you can go to request an appointment for vaccines, or to request an appointment for a travel visit, or to request an appointment for a waiver. So within that area is probably where the link will be to the online educational information. There is still a state requirement for the parents, once they complete that education, to come to the health department to sign the official waiver in person. But again, what will make this more convenient is that the educational aspect of it can be done on your own time in your own house. It's going to be mobile friendly, so people can start it, stop it. If they got 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, they won't have to find a dedicated chunk of time to come to the health department for that state required education. All of the educational stuff will be taken care of on their own time. And then if they have questions or want to talk to our team about some of the stuff that's in the education, they're welcome to schedule another appointment. But in terms of how all of that is going to be logistically worked out, that's the part that we're still kind of in the final process of.
Okay. That'd be great if you could maybe keep our board up to date and even maybe an email about when it's going live. We would appreciate that. I think another question I have is, you talked about how the conversations won't really change, not a lot is changing in your decision-making, and how you have conversations. But could you walk us through what it looks like with a typically healthy child with the new vaccine recommendations going from 17 to 11? And when you're talking about based on community health and individual health for someone looking to potentially not have a vaccine or have a vaccine, what are some of those things that you're walking through with a patient?
So, I mean, typically what we would do would be this, imagine going to your own doctor's appointment, right? And it's going to look a little bit different depending on what age group you might happen to be in, right? But just like we have different recommendations for when certain screening tests are done, or when we might think about starting a blood pressure medication, for example. There are guidelines that are written down that, like, these are kind of what you would do in a general situation, but we know that not everybody fits a checklist, right? And so if someone comes in and says, I've been reading about these vaccines and, I'm okay with these and these, but I really have questions about this particular vaccine. That's where that conversation happens. Okay, tell me what you've read about it. Tell me what you're worried about. And then asking, is it okay if I share with you what I know about these vaccines or what the general recommendation is for these vaccines? And then having that one-on-one conversation is really important. And that's what our team excels at. A lot of times when people come in for their education visits or their vaccine visits, they'll say, I didn't know that. Like, nobody's ever told me that before. And they're really pleasantly surprised at the education that takes place in those visits. And so we plan to just continue being a space where people can bring their questions, bring their concerns, and then also sharing with them the information that is the best that we have available for them, and then respecting their choice and making sure that we have ways to make sure that they can, if they want to get a waiver, they can do that more easily now, hopefully. But again, we continue to follow evidence-based consensus wherever we can. And I know that people might look at evidence and come to different conclusions. And that's, again, where that one-on-one conversation takes place as we look at what are all the things that you as a parent are thinking about for your child, because we all have the same goal, and that's keeping that kid healthy.
So when your staff, you and your staff, where are the trainings? Do they have continued trainings on vaccines? And have you ever changed your view based on new scientific evidence as it relates to vaccines here in your work here at the county?
Absolutely. That's essentially how evidence-based care works, is when there's new evidence that, for example, I'll talk about maybe the rotavirus vaccine. And again, I know I said I was trying not to get into the science, and I'll just do a little bit. The rotavirus vaccine that we have now is not the same one that we had 20 years ago when I was in medical school. There were safety concerns with that vaccine. Those safety concerns were highlighted, and that vaccine was then pulled from the market. And the vaccine that we have now is different. and it has continued to undergo safety evaluation, and it is one of the most actually effective vaccines in terms of keeping kids out of the hospital around the world, which is one of the goals. We're trying not just to prevent death, we're trying to prevent sickness and hospitalization and all these other kind of things. And when we look at it from a public health standpoint, we can say, out of most situations, what's going to be the most effective thing to prevent this disease spreading in a community? And then when we have those individual conversations, we can say, okay, what does your risk look like? What is this, in terms of your other health history, those kind of things. Those are the things that we do the shared clinical decision-making. And that's, again, even though it's being stated more explicitly in the recommendations, it's not a change from our practice. We've always practiced that way.
Okay. One thing that I just wanted to bring to your attention, because I agree with you when you say that everyone wants to make sure that we're caring for the residents here in the best way, right? We all have the best intentions. And I too want constituents to have confidence that they have the latest updated safety information from the revised federal vaccine information statement. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that in the past, the state has always followed the Advisory Council of Immunization Practices, also by the name of ACIP. And now the state's choosing not to do so. And I think it's really important as you continue to work through some of the legal matters and also having the best practices is to question why that might be. And they have always been a highly recognized, and I'm not going to have the right word, but outfit there. And so that's something that I just want you to keep at the forefront. We shouldn't be going towards one way or the other with politics. It should be very much like if you followed the Advisory Council of Immunization Practices before, really having that conversation about, are we going to choose to do that? Because the state's currently not. And that's concerning to me. And then you mentioned the online waiver system, so I appreciate that. I have a couple more questions that have nothing to do with vaccines, but I want to have an opportunity for other board members if you guys wanted to talk about what she brought forward today.
John?
Yeah. So from the public health perspective, you talked about the 95% threshold. What if you don't get it? What's the response then when that doesn't happen?
Well, if it doesn't happen, we start seeing what we've been seeing nationwide, and that is that vaccine preventable diseases become more common. The disease is spread more easily among people that aren't protected by the immunity that those vaccines provide. But again, we're not here to try to change someone's deeply held belief. We're here to provide that information. And I think it's important that we recognize that sharing that information, sharing the fact that we've had measles in all 3 of our surrounding counties over the past year, that's not trying to scare people into getting vaccinated. That's trying to share accurate information so that they can weigh those risks and then potential benefits, and saying, would you rather be vulnerable to this vaccine preventable disease, or would you rather take the alternative protective measures that might include having to stay home from school if you're exposed and not protected? Again, this is where the public health versus the individual decision-making sometimes seems like it's in tension, but if we do it well, which is our goal, then hopefully we can continue to protect the entire community while maintaining those individual decisions.
I guess that's my point. So we're seeing a rise in measles around the country. What do we do about that as a community? I mean, I understand individual rights, but I also know that there's a whole slew of kids in the classroom that can't be exposed to measles because one child has it, right? So does the community mental health department have some role to play in that, and what is it?
So under different statutory authority, and Officer Hambley can speak to this a little bit too, we also do have the ability to take measures that control the spread of disease, right? And so that's where some of those other measures that we educate about during the vaccine waiver education appointment come into play, which is that, let's say there's a case of measles in a classroom. The kids in that school that are not protected by having a vaccine or having had measles in the past, which is increasingly rare these days, will need to stay home for a certain amount of time as a temporary measure to prevent the spread of the disease in that community. And I would maybe use as an example some of the other communities throughout the country that have had these measles outbreaks over the last year. Once the outbreak has been established, they have taken other measures to make sure, hey, we're keeping our kids home for this right amount of time, just to make sure that they're not at high risk of either contracting it or spreading it to someone else. So again, those are conversations that kind of have to happen individually, but also we do have other means as a health department of protecting both the person that's been exposed and the person that they might expose. Is that helpful? Does that make sense?
I get it.
Okay.
Commissioner Wenzel?
Do you know, does Ottawa County make the actual language on the waivers, or does the state?
The state makes the waiver forms, yes.
The actual language on
Yes,
it?
it's an official MDHHS form, and it's a state requirement that we have the parents sign that in person. The education is variable, again, because it depends on the individual circumstances, and that's where that shared clinical decision-making comes into play.
So I know when we signed the waivers, we were allowed to cross out things that we did not agree with, an initial, and then there was a period where you weren't allowed to do that. Where does that stand today?
I believe right now the waivers are mostly electronic, so I'm not sure logistically how that would work.
Okay.
But again, in terms of our requirements, our requirement is set by the state that we have to have a person sign the waiver form, and that waiver form has to be on file for them to be able to participate in certain activities, which include school and childcare. But in terms of who sets those guidelines, that is determined at the state. That's not our requirement.
Okay, and the reason for these questions, we have 2 of 4 children that are vaccine injured, so I just have a lot of questions. Do you have a downloadable PDF for parents to decode all of the substances that are used in the vaccines, but not listed on the final product?
We give the vaccine information sheets and we provide the manufacturer information. Everything that's required by the federal guidelines is what we provide. In terms of looking deeper into the things that may not be widely available, I'm not quite certain where you're going with that. Is there a specific resource that you have that you'd like to share with us?
Well, during all of our research, we found that substances used in manufacturing are not listed on the final product. So if you ask for the vaccine insert or whatever, so how does someone get all substances that were used in manufacturing that vaccine?
They may need to contact the manufacturer. If you have a specific resource that you found in your research, please feel free to pass that along to us.
Okay. And the last one is, does the online education educate the public on what can happen to a child from the approximately 70 different additives that can and do harm children? Is that part of the education?
The education is based on the evidence-based scientific available this information, including manufacturer information. And again, I want to be careful about treading into very specifics here because again, these are conversations that aren't really policy related. But I can say this also, that if there are very specific concerns or questions that you have or that any member of this board has or a parent or a family member has, I encourage, bring that in. Let's look at it together. I mean, that's how we learn. So
Yes, I think I would love to see that given to every parent who's going to give their child vaccines because I wasn't aware of all of it's insane what's in there. Animal DNA, animal blood, aborted fetal cells, aluminum. I mean, it goes on at 70 different things. And had I seen that and been able to research that, I would never have done it. So I would love to see a time when we actually give all of that information to every single parent who decides to put that shot into their child's body.
and again, if you'd like to share that information so that we can learn from it together, I'd welcome that.
Can I jump in?
Let's go to
Yeah.
Commissioner Bonema.
Yeah, Health Officer Hambley had brought this program to our attention was it last year or even maybe even fourth quarter before the year before? It's been in the works for a little while, so I'm excited to see it finally come to fruition. Is anyone else implementing it already? Is it live in any other health departments in the state of Michigan that we could maybe go to their portal, kind of see how they've decided to roll it out? Is it anywhere yet?
I know there are a couple of counties on the east side of the state, and some of them have done their own education and some of them have partnered with the state the way we have. I'm not sure if I could list all of those counties for you. I know Livingston County has their own vaccine waiver of education program online. I'm not sure exactly how, if you can go in as a test person and check that out, but that's the one that I know off the top of my head that it has been doing it and they've been having great success with it.
Super. Love to learn from others.
Yeah.
So,
Us too.
yeah.
Commissioner Meanwhile.
Last thing, and I'm pivoting, so it's not based on your presentation, so it might be a question for Adeline, I'm not sure. So it's my understanding that the Planet organization that happens every few years is up for renewal again this year. And so I have just a couple of questions in regards to it. The first question I have is I'm wondering when our Board of Commissioners should expect to receive this year's information. If you have a date on the calendar yet to do so, and then if you have any current thoughts or information you'd like to share preliminary wise with the board at this time. And then I have a couple follow-ups.
So the plan of organization, we have to submit every year for our accreditation, and our accreditation is scheduled for May of 2026. And so the next step of the process is it goes to Corporation Council to review all the various, if you remember from last year, since you would have seen it, or last cycle, you would have seen it last time. There's a lot of citations for the laws that we operate under and that we're required to follow or governs our work. So they'll do that review of that. And I just spoke to Doug yesterday. And so hopefully he'll be in his hands in the next couple weeks. So we're shooting for getting it to the board in February.
Okay.
So once his kind of review is done on the legal framework, then it will come to the board to review. I wouldn't anticipate significant changes from the last one. It'll look pretty similar. Some of what changes as it cites, we have to call out who is the Corporation Council. We have to provide updated org charts. So those will all be updated. A lot of the kind of meat and potatoes, I suppose, of the document stays the same.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a request to both you and Patrick. It would be very helpful based on the prior plan of organization. I think it would be very helpful for this full board to receive a red line version to show the changes from the last plan, which was presented back in '23. And that would give our board a little bit of a basis on what things changed. And sometimes there are very minor things like what you just said, renaming of who's now in positions, but it would be really great for our capabilities to best understand it.
Okay.
And so that is my, and I don't know if all the board members know what a plan of organization is, but I think Adeline stated it well, that it's approved by MDHHS as part of their accreditation process.
Yeah.
There's more involved, but.
Yeah, it's kind of, they provide the overall framework, and then we kind of have to insert our specific information. It's what the county's required to do for maintaining a local health department. So it asks Corporation Council, indemnification, things like that. I believe there's a part in there for the minimum maintenance of effort is provided by the county, things like that. But it is sort of a specified outline from the state that we
Kind of
fill
like
in.
shares a little bit of your vision and your values, right? And your planning efforts. It's a little bit like a strategic plan.
Yes, we do have to include our strategic plan.
Yes.
Yes, as well. Yep.
So it's very beneficial, I think, for like us to have a better understanding and to be able to how to support you and questions that we might have that you're wondering like, okay, what do they want to know about? So I think that'd be very helpful. So I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. I think, is that it? Well, thank you very much for the presentations. Very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
as we get to the end of the agenda here, I just want to make a quick comment. While we have a platform that their community mental health public hearing is happening this evening at 6 o'clock in Georgetown Public Library. The meeting that was scheduled for last night in Spring Lake has been moved to Monday, the 26th, again at 6 p.m. And on February 5th, a public hearing will be held at the Community Mental Health Office in Holland on James Street. So we just want to get the word out on that so we can get feedback to help guide us and inform folks about potential changes.
Commissioner Barry, is that the one that got rescheduled? Is it back in Spring Lake again?
Yep,
Yeah.
same location.
Okay.
Same time.
Thank you.
Just push back a week. And about if anybody has anything else for the good of the group,
Public
we
comment.
are adjourned.
Public comment. Sorry.
Oh, public comment. I'm so sorry.
There's no public.
Will be online.
Okay. Thank you.